Welcome to Uncovered. It's Wednesday. I'm Anthony. He's Ron. And we're about to uncover the MAGA propaganda, not covered by the mainstream and corporate media. Ron, we have a lot to talk about, of course, as the world is in a crazy spin, courtesy of your favorite president, or Jesus, I should probably call him. But we'll come to that a little bit later. Or Dr. Jesus, I should get that right. Let's start with his vice president, of course, J.D. Vance, who has been hugely successful to the people of Hungary in the last few days. Before we move on to his domestic activities, he, of course, went to campaign for Viktor Orban in Hungary on behalf of Donald Trump in the United States. And, of course, Orban lost the election. So that is a great place to start, isn't it?
Well, it's just mystifying that both he and Rubio would do this. I mean, I know Trump is buddies with Orban because they're both puppets of Putin, so I understand Trump doing this, but, for Vance to just go all in when every poll, was showing that Orban's party was going to get destroyed.
Yeah.
So why are you putting your own personal credibility as a youngish politician with presidential aspirations? Why are you pushing all your chips into the middle of the table for Viktor freaking Orban, of all people?
Well, because he was told
corrupt, who is likely about to be exposed as soon as MAGA gets his hands on the apparatus of government and starts investigating, is likely going to be exposed as just a complete criminal.
Yes.
And so you're going to go all in for him, who's about to lose after he went all in last year for AfD in Germany. It's just, I mean, the guy is just on one hell of a losing streak.
But doesn't that show the incompetence and the lack of self-awareness of the Trump administration and J.D. Vance, and that they really do think that they are kings of the world? And, I mean, they, as you say, they must have seen the polling, but maybe they think that, Trump's touch is the Midas touch, if you'd pardon the expression, and the, because they said, we will invest in Hungary if you vote for Viktor Orban. That was as blatant as that.
That was this bizarre messaging. It's like you're telling the Hungarian people, like, if you keep the authoritarian in charge, the U.S. is going to invest a bunch of money in Hungary and help you guys out. I mean, literally openly tampering in their election, promising to spend U.S. taxpayer dollars in Hungary to buy votes for the autocrat, the unpopular, corrupt autocrat. I mean, it just shows you, to me, it shows you this. To me, it shows an act of desperation, because I think that a lot is going to be exposed here, because there's been reporting inside Hungary that the Orban government has been used as a proxy, where Vladimir Putin has funneled money into the Hungarian regime run by Orban that has been passed through not only to right-wing MAGA type groups in the United States like CPAC, but in other right-wing movements around Europe. And that money is coming from Russia through Hungary out to these groups. And I believe that Magyar has every intention of getting to the bottom of that and exposing all of it. And it's not some, there are some people both in Europe and in the United States who are not going to look very good.
So you've just answered our own question as to why J.D. Vance went there and
I think that's why
put himself on the line. This is a quid pro quo, effectively. And as you say, you trace, always follow the money, right? And in this case, it leads back to the Kremlin. So Russia, nothing to do with me. There's the little hands. J.D. Vance, his ability to disappoint people wherever he goes. I mean, he really is. We should just go back and rewind a week or so to him going to Islamabad and being the kind of chief negotiator for the war in Iran. Failed there as well, and openly admitted we did not have any success here. So that's his credentials laid out. Meanwhile, back here, he steps up to take over from Erica Kirk at a Turning Point USA event.
Yeah, and nobody shows up. I think these are the times when it's helpful to sort of revisit this latest incarnation of JD Vance, because he's reinvented himself so many times over the
That's
years.
right.
So if you go back to 2022, JD Vance was a Peter Thiel propped up puppet who had been given a bunch of money by Thiel and Musk to run for Senate. Prior to that, he was a militant anti-Trump Republican, a lifelong atheist, married to an Indian American, right? So if you want to run for Senate and credentials, being anti-Trump Republican, atheist, married to an Indian American is not the greatest resume to run on.
And also, you forgot the former homosexual as well, because he did admit that he might have been gay, but he wasn't sure.
Yeah, he wasn't sure. So, I mean, you got a lot of stuff swirling around there.
Yeah.
So obviously he understands that that's not a winning formula for him in a Ohio Republican primary. So he completely changes his whole deal. You know, he goes all in on Trump. I love Trump all of a sudden. You know, he went from Trump is Hitler to I love Trump. He went from he converted to Catholicism just a couple of years, but I think it was in 2000.
Atheism, it's quite a stretch, isn't
it? From atheism to Catholicism, right? Yeah. Why did he pick Catholicism? Because Ohio Republican Party has a huge number of Catholics in Ohio. So that could be why he picked it. Maybe he just loved Catholicism. Maybe there was something about Catholicism that spoke to him. By the way, his wife is not Catholic. So you know, he becomes pro-Trump, he becomes Catholic, you know, he totally transforms his whole rap, and still he's fourth in the polls in the Republican primary, polling at 12. With all Peter Thiel's money, Musk's money, this whole new persona, he can't get out of fourth place in the Republican primary. Occasionally he edged out, I think it was Jane Tiffin for third once in a while, where he would get 13 and she would get 12%. And then, so he's dead in the water. I mean, he goes through that primary, he loses. Basically, his political career is essentially over at that point, getting crushed in the Ohio primary. But what happens? He befriends Donald Trump Jr. They become pals. Jr. gets in his dad's ear. Everyone is telling him not to endorse Vance. He endorses Vance, and out of the blue, that's it. Vance wins the primary. Trump endorsed him like a month before the primary. He goes from fourth to first. He wins. So he's only in the Senate because of that, not because of his own personality, not because of his own popularity or his ability to win over Ohio voters. It was all on the Trump endorsement. So then what happens? Then Jr. also convinces him to pick Vance as his running mate when everyone else told Trump not to do it. But he did. And so he rides Trump's coattails to the VP. So nothing that Vance has achieved politically is because of his own merit. It's not because of his own ability or popularity. It's literally because Trump dragged him into the MAGA movement to the top, and also because Vance transforms himself. So you have this,
and also the book as well. Do you not think the book Hillbilly Elegy plays a part in the story too? Because it gave Trump this kind of this rags to riches story with which to play on as a partnership, something that Trump didn't possess because he was always, you know, a billionaire. It gave him that kind of man of the people to work with.
Yeah, I suppose so. I guess, you know, the white working class thing, you know, that's Trump's base, you know, white, no college, working class voters. So that, I guess so. So this weekend, you know, the Turning Point holds this big rally in Georgia, which is supposed to kind of help out their Senate candidates and their governor candidates and, you know, rally young voters for it. And they rent out this huge arena and it's going to be Vance reuniting with Erica Kirk, you know, and they're going to do this big rally. And literally no one got tickets to it. It was just like, it was completely, it could have held it in a VFW or an American Legion Lodge or a bingo hall, you know, and they rented out a stadium. So it was a total disaster. Why? Well, you have a confluence of events here, because let's talk about Turning Point and Charlie Kirk and put these two things together. So when Charlie Kirk was killed, you know, basically what I told the guys at the time, you know, everybody with Midas is I said, look, they're going to get this huge surge in donations, memberships, all of that because of everything, you know, that happened in the wake of Kirk. But that's only going to last so long because this I looked at the people taking it over from Kirk, you know, the various people, and I know them. And it's not just Erica Kirk, the other people. And I said, these are talentless clowns, and they're never going to be able to keep this thing going. It's sort of like, you know, Rush Limbaugh died, and this guy tried to do the Rush Limbaugh show for a while without Rush Limbaugh, and it went out of business, went nowhere. I mean, if Howard Stern retired and the rest of his crew tried to do the Howard Stern show, it's not going to work. And neither is Turning Point without Charlie Kirk.
Sure.
I don't like Charlie Kirk, but I'm going to give him, you know, I guess I call it grudging respect here. The guy was a great organizer. The guy was a good communicator. He was relentless, and he built his organization. And without him, the magic is gone. And so you're trying to now, how long it is after his death, 6 months or so or more. And now they're trying to continue to sell out events, and it's not happening. So you combine that with you're making an organization that is struggling to get people to struggling to remain relevant, and you're adding to that an incredibly unpopular, boring person like JD Vance as your headline speaker, and the end result is an empty arena.
The terrible jokes as well is something that he's becoming well known for. The fact that he really has the worst sense of humor. Here are the pictures of the arena, and you're correct.
That's while he's speaking, by the way. That's not like an hour before.
Right. So he could have literally just have sat down the front and done it as like a bedtime story, because clearly everyone's been put to sleep. I mean, they've definitely, as you say, they've definitely overbooked this space.
So here's the other thing that happened was right before Erica Kirk backs out.
Right.
Because she knows that no one's going to be there because they can see the number of tickets that have been reserved.
Yes.
So she backs out and claims that she did it because she's getting threats.
Yes. So here's her post. She goes, "I was so looking forward to tonight's event at the University of GA with our Vice President, JD Vance, but after all our family has been through, I take my security team's recommendations extremely seriously. Blah, blah, blah." And so Candace Owens, who, of course, is, formerly on the team, now clearly on the outside, posts, "Stop. This is exhausting. You pulled out because of bad ticket sales. For the same reason, Turning Point Faith had to reschedule the Pastors Summit and various other events quietly. People don't believe you and don't line up for you because you struggle to tell the truth, even about the most basic facts. Where is the video of Charlie appointing you as CEO weeks before his death? The Secret Service sits above your security team. Were there actually a viable threat? The Vice President would not have continued the event. Your closest threat is the shit public relations team you hired that continues to operate under the delusion that they are smarter than the public. They aren't." Well, you can always trust Candace Owens to put it in the most explicit language. So she's basically been exposed here. And look, undoubtedly, conspiracy theory aside, there's a whole lot of controversy about Charlie Kirk's death. The clearance of the site afterwards, they're cementing over it and closing down a shop or something from far away, and where's the shooter now, and all that stuff. So, of course, it leads people to conspiracies about this entire movement.
Well, because she claimed that that Charlie wanted her to take over in case anything ever happened to him.
Yeah.
And take over Turning Point. That's what she claims. And so people like Candace have challenged Erica to produce any proof of that. Yes. Anything in writing or a video, or I think because Erica claims he said it on video, but no one's ever produced the video.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like when she canceled and claimed that she canceled because of threats, I'm like, well, why did Vance do it?
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, and you think about it, you got an arena, you got Secret Service, you got security. I mean, hard to believe that there would be any concern there. You'd think that they had that place pretty buttoned up.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to criticize her and call bullshit on it myself, because I was like, that'd be kind of insensitive.
Just leave it to Candace Owens to do that for you.
But then I saw the Candace Owens post, and I'm like, No, this is nice because she summed up nicely what I probably would have said myself.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about Pope Leo. And I mean, of all the people that we were going to be talking about, I didn't think that the Pope would be on the list of people that Trump was choosing to abuse this week. I mean, you know, the British Prime Minister, I can understand. He's having
always a good target.
Always a good target. Go for the nerds. Always go for the nerds, right? But on this occasion, you know, Pope Leo, he's not that long out of the trap, is he? I mean, he really is quite new to this game, and he's facing the wrath of the President of the United States, despite the fact that he himself is an American Pope, the first American Pope, and therefore a Pope that you would have thought the US wanted to kind of maintain some kind of deep connection with, not just on a religious level, but, you know, for relations. Tell us why Trump first kind of decided that Pope Leo was not flavor of the month.
I'm glad you asked me that because I actually can answer that question, I think, very well.
Okay.
So, great article in the New York Times about this yesterday, which really kind of like brought all the pieces together for me and kind of filled in some of the blanks that I had about this question. And it completely I thought it was a brilliant article. And basically what it argued was this, that Francis was a deeply unpopular pope with American Republican Catholics. So think about that. So break it down, that group. And he was not popular for a lot of reasons. You know, he was perceived as very woke, very liberal on a lot of issues, especially immigration. He was South American. You know, obviously English wasn't his first language. He was an older guy. You know, there was a lot of reasons why he didn't connect to conservative Catholics in America. Trump recognized that in 2016 and regularly attacked Francis. And it actually worked very well for him. It was one of the keys to him winning over the conservative Catholic vote in 2016, which was not that receptive to him at first. They were largely for Rubio or Cruz.
Yeah.
But he won them over by going after Francis. It was a great strategy for him politically because the other two wouldn't do it. You know, the other Republicans in the race would not go after Francis, and Trump openly did, and he won over a lot of the Catholic vote. And so this article basically makes the case that Trump is trying to run this same playbook again, and he's trying to go after now Leo. The problem is, as this article explains very well, that Leo is not Francis. Leo is very, very popular with Republican conservative Catholics. His approval rating with them is 79%, whereas Francis was like 30%. So you're going after the wrong guy here. He's trying to run the same playbook, but the problem is Leo is a totally different ball game. And he's attacking him because Leo is talking about peace, you know, and he's preaching anti-war sentiments right now, and talking about how many innocent people around the world, and especially in the Middle East, are getting killed every single day, and in Ukraine and all of that, and that Trump is instrumental in that. So, and you're talking about a street smart guy from Chicago. He's American. He speaks English. And Trump is not winning this argument, not winning the fight. And what he's where he's personally attacking Leo is backfiring on him big time. And this is really the absolute, with everything else, gas prices, his historic unpopularity, with everything else going on, this is the last thing Republicans needed heading into the midterm, is for Trump to anger Catholics.
Let's take a look.
And they're going to go back, filled up with oil. Okay.
Why did you attack Pope Leo on Truth Social?
I don't think he's doing a very good job. He likes crime, I guess. He hit us. Think of it. He's worried about fear. What about the fear when the ministers and the priests and all of those great people that were arrested during COVID, and in many cases they're outside 10 feet apart, and they were arrested. So we don't like it. We don't like a pope that's going to say that it's okay to have a nuclear weapon. We don't want a pope that says crime is okay in our cities. I don't like it. I'm not a big fan of Pope Leo. He's a very liberal person, and he's a man that doesn't believe in stopping crime. He's a man that doesn't think that we should be toying with a country that wants a nuclear weapon so they can blow up the world. I'm not a fan of Pope Leo.
I'm not sure where to start with this. I mean, maybe we'll start with he's not doing a very good job. I love the idea that there is a kind of job description for poping, right? And Trump's looked at the Pope job description. He's going, sorry, we're doing your review, and you're not poping well enough, compared to the last guy and the guy before. I mean, this is bonkers, Ron. I mean, it is absolutely bonkers. And then he goes into his autopilot, crime, and all the stuff that he would say about anybody else. He now just autopilots in about the Pope. I mean, it's just nuts.
I mean, the thing that Leo has done very well, and I read everything that Trump is complaining about that Leo said, and it's not. It's always Bible scripture based. Everything Leo says comes straight from the Bible. Right. And so I think that I would concede that Francis kind of oftentimes veered off into politics, and not all of it was always completely scripture based, but Leo doesn't fall into that trap. Leo sticks to scripture when he says what he says. So it's like, if you don't want a pope to talk about peace, and innocent people not getting killed, that seems to be like the main job of a pope. I mean, I'm not like well versed in, the job description of a pope either. I'm not Catholic, but it seems like that should be like at the top of the job description, is that when wars are happening and people are being bombed, you sort of talk about the fact that Jesus wouldn't have been a big fan of that. That seems to me like
part of the gig. But it exposes Trump as a non-religious person, doesn't it?
Yeah, he doesn't.
Trump has always been a fake Christian. We know that,
right?
Going right back to
that.
Yeah, exactly. And so this exposes that. I actually got taken to see the Pope when I was a child.
Wow.
This is what we did in Europe. We would, cheap flights to Rome and stuff like that. I mean, admittedly, I didn't shake his hand, but my mum took us to the square, and we saw him come out on the balcony. It was Pope John Paul II, who you look a little bit like, I have to say.
The Polish Pope, of course.
Nicest possible way.
We're compadres. We're same nationality.
Right, exactly. Poles. And so I think that, I get a sense as somebody who's kind of, seen that guy up in the window, that there is a very spiritual feeling associated with people that recognize the importance of the Pope. Clearly, Trump doesn't.
Well, and this also caused him to get in a fight with Giorgia Meloni, right? Because if there's one place that the Pope is going to be even more popular than the United States, it's Italy. And so, and he is enormously popular in Italy. And so when he says this, of course, Meloni gets asked about it, and Meloni up to this point has never criticized Trump, even though she disagrees with him, I'm sure, on Ukraine and a few other things.
Sure.
She's never openly criticized him. And so this was the first time where, obviously she had to take a stand. She would have looked terrible in her own country had she not. And so she came out and she denounced what he said and said it was wrong and he should apologize. Of course, we know Trump will never apologize. And then that caused Trump to go back at Meloni. So not only is he just lost his number one ally in Europe in Orban.
Yeah.
Now this is probably his second biggest ally in Europe, and he is now in a huge tiff with her over these Pope comments.
Good, I say. Let's take a look.
Took a shot at the Italian Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, who you see the two of them there. They have had pretty friendly relations up until this moment in time. He said, she had said that his attacks on the Pope were unacceptable. President Trump responded to that, saying it's her who's unacceptable because she doesn't care if Iran has a nuclear weapon and would blow up Italy in 2 minutes if they had a chance.
Yeah. I mean, this whole nuclear weapon thing as well is crazy because he's using it as leverage for everything. And there was never any evidence.
Everything, right?
Right. There was never any evidence that Iran had a nuclear weapon or was even close to having a nuclear weapon. They had like 3 soup bowls of enriched uranium, and that was about it. And Trump previously, in the last attack, of course, claimed that he'd blown all that up anyway. So this whole narrative of like, you don't care about being obliterated whilst he's obliterating them. Sometimes I really have to think, when we talk about, as I said this last week, that, when he is talking about Iran, they're sick, they're evil, they're dangerous. I'm thinking, yeah, but you're the guy who's executing American citizens on the streets of your own country. Who is the regime that needs to be defeated in this moment?
Well, and he doesn't care if like North Korea gets a nuclear weapon either, because why? Because they're not enemies of Israel. And that's really what this comes down to.
Yes.
When he talks about if they get a nuclear weapon, they're going to use it against the United States. He mentions this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing that we fear is Iran developing an intercontinental ballistic missile and it being able to hit the United States. We all know if Iran did have a nuke, their number one target is not the United States. It's Israel. We know that. So it's like, stop lying to the American people and say this is about like protecting American cities from being nuked by Iran. Yeah. This is about protecting Israel from a potential perceived future threat, when they've clearly demonstrated, it seems to me, they're more than capable of protecting themselves from this threat over the years. So we are doing all of this for Israel. There's no denying that. And so it's just absurd for him to continue to claim that like he's turning the whole world upside down. He's fighting with the Pope, he's fighting with Maloney, he's fighting with the UK and France and everybody else.
Spain,
over American cities being nuked by Iran.
Yeah.
When the reality is, even if there was a nuclear threat, it would be against Israel, not the United States. Not that makes it much better, but stop lying to people.
So let's do a little matrix now, because this is something that you're very good at, is identifying these aspects, these elements that all combined are kind of the beginning of the collapse of the Donald Trump regime, because that's how I see it. So starting with, outside of the war, losing Viktor Orban, and I mean, that was a message, wasn't it? That this far-right nationalist politics is not what people want. And you can only lie to the public for so long before they actually need to see the goods. And if you claim that your prices are going to go down and that your life will be better if immigrants are out and all that kind of stuff, you can only peddle that propaganda for so long before people are like, hang on a second, it's not made any difference. And so I think that it was time up for Orban in Hungary. That is a direct message to Trumpism in America. And so we need to take that very seriously.
Because Orban, think about this. This is where it ties in to, I think, 2028 in our midterms, because Orban did everything he possibly could systemically to rig elections in that country.
Right.
And it worked for a long time. He completely controlled state media, which just pumped out propaganda. He suppressed free speech. He used state funds for electioneering purposes. There was so much that Orban did to rig Hungarian elections, and so I think a lot of those same things are happening in the United States right now. And at some point, it took, I think, the Hungarian people quite a long time to wake up and realize how bad it was, and realize that they were being manipulated by Vladimir Putin. And it also took a good, strong opposition candidate in Peter Magyar, who, by the way, is no woke liberal.
No.
Magyar is a conservative. He would be a conservative Republican. He would be like a John Thune,
right, yes,
of Hungary. He's no lib, right?
Yeah.
He has the same immigration position as Orban. He's just not a Vladimir Putin puppet, and he's just not corrupt, and he's not trying to manipulate things in other European countries.
Yes.
He's not a Putin proxy, and he's not anti-Ukraine. So that's the difference. It's not like they've elected some social democrat here in Hungary.
He must have known, though, Ron, about these payments to CPAC before he won the election, because he didn't just do his investigation in the last 48 hours. So this must have been something that was on his mind, that he didn't say it before he won the election. But the moment he won, that's when he went public with it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that they have identified the fact that Viktor Orban used Hungarian taxpayer money, as well as oil proceeds. He has used Putin oil proceeds, that has been run through the Hungarian government via Putin, to finance a lot of these right-wing movements. And Magyar is, as you put up in that post, talked about the fact that this is over with now.
Yes.
I think it's kind of shocking, because we knew that CPAC did Hungary every year. There was a CPAC Hungary, which was kind of bizarre. I mean, it's the Conservative Political Action Conference.
Right.
It's from the United States.
Didn't Orban come to the U.S. to appear at a CPAC?
He did. Yeah. He spoke at it. So it was always kind of bizarre that they were doing big events in Hungary, and all these like Republican people, all these MAGA figures would go over there and speak, like Don Jr. and Jack Posobiec, and all these right-wing MAGA people that we talk about all the time would go over to Hungary and speak at this conference.
Yeah.
It was kind of bizarre, like why they would. Who cares what?
It's the Putin back channel, Ron. I mean,
but then we found out
clear
that it was all about money. It was that the fact that the Hungarian government was paying Matt Schlapp and all of these people from America to go over and speak in Hungary.
Yes.
So Magyar says, he says, we don't want Hungarian taxpayer dollars going to American right-wing political groups. But I believe that they're going to find, when they get in there and dig, that it actually was not Hungarian taxpayer dollars. It was money from Putin.
And so just to complete the matrix for a moment, we've got that going on in Eastern Europe. We've got Turning Point USA here, which was really the kind of central pillar of this youth movement for MAGA, with no one showing up, even when the vice president is speaking. And so that, to me, shows the trajectory is on the way down. We've, of course, got Donald Trump's poll numbers, which are kind of crashing and burning day by day as this war continues. It does nothing for him. And of course, gas prices and oil prices and just the effect of the troubles that he has caused in the Middle East and North Africa are starting to be felt right across the world.
So his popularity, two groups that he gained the most in between 2020 and 2024 were Latino voters, which he lost that already a year ago with his immigration deportation heavy-handedness.
Everybody knows someone.
He lost those voters before. The other group was young men, not just white men, but also black men and Hispanic men as well, young males. And that the Charlie Kirk Turning Point was behind it. So obviously Kirk is gone. He's not there as an organizer anymore. But one of the big things is, though, they follow all these right-wing conservative podcasters, a lot of these young male Republican Trump voters who came over and became Trump voters. And that the problem is the right-wing podcast ecosystem that these young men listen to have turned against Trump on many issues, but primarily war-related issues. They're very anti-war, that whole group of podcasters. So, and they've all turned on Trump, and I'm not talking about Joe Rogan. Forget Joe Rogan. I'm talking about the other ones. Yeah. And so I think that is also hurting him with these young male voters. So he lost the Hispanics that came to him in 2024. He's lost the young men largely over this and affordability issues. So it's like MAGA's bleeding out. For the first time ever, he's underwater. He's at like 49% in white voters that didn't go to college. That is the essence of the MAGA movement. The entire MAGA movement is built. The foundation of the MAGA movement is white voters who did not go to college. And he is now underwater with them for the first time ever. So the house of cards really is coming down.
Yeah, it's so interesting. So what do you do when you sense that there is this kind of implosion of your authority? You post a picture online of you depicting Jesus. That clearly is the solution to all of this. You've had your argument with the Pope. You've fallen out with Italy. Spain's given you gyp. Viktor Orban's dropped the ball for you. All you can do is light yourself up like a Christmas tree, heal the sick. Did you notice the guy lying there looked a little bit like Jeffrey Epstein? I thought there was some certain irony there with that photograph. But that was an AI-generated image. Trump, of course, was asked about it. He deleted it within 24 hours, but only after the backlash from the right wing.
From his own people.
From his own people. Let's take a look.
And did you post that picture of yourself depicted as Jesus Christ?
Well, it wasn't depicted. It was me. I did post it, and I thought it was me as a doctor, and had to do with Red Cross as a Red Cross worker there, which we support. And only the fake news could come up with that one. So I just heard about it, and I said, how did they come up with that? It's supposed to be me as a doctor making people better, and I do make people better. I make people a lot better. As an example, the 11,000, I understand your husband's going through treatment.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He's
He
going
has
through
cancer.
some very serious cancer treatment, so
Yes, sir.
this goes a long way.
Yes, sir. It sure does.
Yeah, so he pivots to the DoorDash grandma.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about her in a
Yeah,
minute. 'Cause
we'll
she's
talk
a
about her
red herring.
in a minute, because that's the fact that he linked up the Trump Jesus to no tax on tips is the weave that he is. I guess he claims that he's famous for. It's
Yes.
totally bizarre.
Yes.
But before that, so this is just yet another example of the incredible number of unforced errors that Trump continues to make with his Truth Social account. I'm sure that every Republican, yeah, there he is. So he claims that this is him as a Red Cross doctor.
Yeah.
With demons,
Yep.
in the air,
The eagle.
and fire coming out of his, laying hands on someone to heal them. He's a real Florence Nightingale right there, isn't
Yeah.
he? With
Yeah.
with the stuff coming out of his. Yeah, that he thought that showed him as a Red Cross doctor. Total bullshit. So we documented last year this all goes back to this thing. I'll tell you this. Trump, prior to every single rally in the 2024 campaign, would bring in, as we played on the show many times, a local pastor from wherever they were at, right?
Yes.
And that pastor was, in theory, supposed to give the opening prayer at the Trump rallies, and it was always a different one, except it was never really a prayer. Every single one of these things were messaging about how Trump is the new Messiah who has been sent by God to save America. And this is a struggle against good and evil, Christians against heathens. And, Trump was going to save the world because he's been touched by God. And that was the messaging that was at every single Trump rally. That's what he puts out to his people. And that's why he has the White House Faith Office doing the same thing. So this all comes as part of that, because his supporters create these memes. Trump didn't create this. One of his supporters, Nick Adams, a right-wing social media influencer, created that. And so Trump sees all this stuff on Truth Social swirling around, Trump the Messiah. This stuff floats around Truth Social all the time. And he grabs it. It's one thing for, these nut jobs to post it, random nut jobs on Truth Social to post Trump as Jesus. But for him to post it is a different matter. And so he went ahead and posted this guy's meme. And of course, the backlash was instant. And he posted this, by the way, at like 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
So that's when he does his craziest shit. So, he posts this meme of himself as Jesus. And again, I think the reaction of the left Democrats was just to kind of laugh and say, once again, this is Trump being a complete psychotic maniac. But I think the reaction of the right was anger. was fury, because this also comes on the heel of him the post of him celebrating Rob Reiner dying, and him putting out the post of Barack Obama and Michelle Obama as apes.
Yes.
You know, this stuff is not helpful to the Republican Party and Republican voters, especially as we head into the midterm. So, but him putting out, you know, it's one thing for him to put out Obama as an ape. That's only going to get a certain level of outrage on the right, not much. But and you know, him celebrating Rob Reiner's death again, that's only going to get outrage from Democrats and the media. The Republicans don't really care. But, you know, him showing himself as Jesus, that crossed the line. And he didn't delete that because we were complaining about it or the media was. He deleted it because his own people were furious.
I mean, it's a sorry example of where America is at when Trump insults the legacy of Rob Reiner, who was basically murdered in his own home along with his wife, allegedly by his own son. A truly tragic story. And somebody who has, you know, contributed to American popular culture over decades. And the fact that that doesn't seem to get any traction, even from a humanity perspective, with Republicans, because he was a liberal, so of course, you know, the humanity disappears. But then posting a picture of Trump depicting Jesus, Dr. Jesus, can really affect people in such a deep way, and then says a lot about the country, Ron.
And then he made it worse by putting out a long deranged post attacking some of the main prominent right-wing MAGA influencer type people, attacking them by name, singling them out because they complained about the Jesus post. He went after them. One of the people who criticized him was Riley Gaines. Riley Gaines famously has achieved notoriety because she was the college swimmer who finished 5th at the NCAAs. That a trans swimmer won the event, and you know, she turned that into a whole big career. You know, that the loss is now part her career. So she's now this right-wing podcaster, Fox contributor, parlayed that into a career. And she criticized Trump because she's very Christian, you know, about this. And so Trump was asked, you know, what do you think about even Riley Gaines, your biggest fan, criticized you? He said, I don't like Riley Gaines. I don't listen to her. She's terrible. And it's like, you know, Riley Gaines has never criticized Trump ever before this.
The I don't care, we've heard him say a few times recently. And I think, because I do see the decline, both in terms of, you know, the dementia aspect of the decline, but also the power of the ego. Because remember, just a couple of days or maybe a day before he posted this Jesus picture, I saw him having one of these faith events in the White House, and this faith leader turned to him and started comparing him to Jesus.
Yeah.
And making all of these claims that, you know, Jesus went through all of this and you're
they
going
do it all the time.
Right.
So it's one thing for them to do it.
Yeah.
That's bad, but it's one. But for him to then pick up on it and put it out himself.
But it's because he believes it, though. You know,
well,
when people,
you're probably right there.
Right? Normally, if someone pays you these insane level compliments, any rational person is be like, yeah, okay, thank you. It's very sweet of you, but I'm really not Jesus. But not Trump, because he nuts.
Honestly, I never really thought of that. But yeah, you make a good point. He's probably starting to believe the bullshit.
Well, he always believed it, but now he's getting legitimacy because he's surrounding himself with people who are as bonkers as he is.
Yeah.
And that faith department don't look like any Christianity I've ever seen. I'll be honest with you. It is.
Yeah, they're all
out
nuts.
there, all on its own.
Yep.
And they lay their hands on him and they pray to him.
Yep.
Never mind the fact that he is, you know, an adjudicated rapist. Never mind the fact that he has, you know, the Access Hollywood tape and he's divorced 3 times and multiple wives and Stormy Daniels. I mean, never mind all that stuff.
Yeah,
really,
the corruption, the lies, the greed.
Yeah,
I mean, you take the 7 deadly sins, he commits all 7 every day.
I know. So this is unfortunately where we're at now. I think foreign leaders have started, because of the Jesus picture, because that was very much a line in the sand. Because you and I have been saying for ages, like, when are the foreign leaders, the NATO people, the EU people, the allies, going to realize that Trump ain't no ally anymore?
Right.
And that he's never going to, as much as you love him, he's never going to love you back. And so taking him gifts and blowing smoke up his backside, there is no reciprocation with a narcissist. It just doesn't exist. So I think the Jesus picture has ricocheted around the world, and world leaders are like, okay, we're done now. And I think it has far more of an impact on world politics and geopolitics than it just being an AI meme.
And I think that this Iran war is really broke the dam on what you just said about them, because this has largely negatively impacted many of their countries more than even the United States.
100%.
The impact's been felt here, but we produce a tremendous amount of our own oil, natural gas, all of that. So it still affects us, but there are other countries that are suffering far worse than us because they don't have domestic production of a lot of these commodities that come out of there. And so I think that when Trump is confronted about that question, he doesn't care. I mean, he says flat out, like, I don't care. They can buy from us now. This is actually a good thing. Now they have to buy stuff from us instead of from them.
So he doesn't understand energy markets either, because
he doesn't understand how that affects.
Whilst the US might have its own supply, it still trades on the world energy markets.
Right.
So the prices are going to go up whether you have your own supply or not.
Because oil companies are not national. They're not owned by the government.
No.
So
And
they're multinational companies, and they're going to sell their products where they can get the highest price.
And they're making $1 million a minute at the moment.
Doesn't matter whether the oil comes out of the ground in the United States or from somewhere else.
No.
They're going to sell it where they get the most money.
But he doesn't understand that in the same way he didn't understand reciprocal tariffs with other countries anyway. I mean, the man literally is the dumbest man in America, given the biggest job in America. I mean, you couldn't ask for worse. Listen, we've got to take a quick break, but I want to come back, and you touched on this DoorDash grandma, this woman who he kind of used as a stooge. She showed up with McDonald's to deliver. There was no tax on tips, and yet again, another Donald Trump publicity stunt exposed. We'll do that next here on Uncovered. You've got weight loss goals, but actually sticking to them, that's where things get tough. Between busy schedules, confusing advice, and plans that just don't last, it can feel like you're spinning your wheels. That's why more people are turning to Weight Loss by Hims. It's a modern, personalized approach designed to help you lose the weight and keep it off. With Wegovy at Hims, lose up to 20% or more of your body weight when combined with diet and exercise. It helps you regulate your appetite and eat less, so success is within reach. Plus, Wegovy is the first ever GLP-1 pill for weight loss, so there are no needles needed. Through Hims, everything happens online. You'll connect with a licensed provider who will determine if treatment is right for you. If prescribed, your medication is delivered right to your door, no insurance necessary. And it doesn't stop there. Hims makes hitting your goals seamless by offering access to 24/7 messaging with your care team and in-app lifestyle and nutrition support, like recipes, meal plans, fitness videos, sleep content, and more. Even better, with a range of affordable GLP-1 options, Hims makes it simple to find a weight loss approach that fits into your world and your wallet, if eligible. You'll get a treatment plan personalized to you and unlimited dosage changes as needed. Ready to reach your goals? Visit hims.com/uncovered to get a personalized, affordable plan that gets you. That's HIMS.com/uncovered. hims.com/uncovered. Weight Loss by Hims is not available in all 50 states. Wegovy is the registered trademark of Novo Nordisk AS. To get started and learn more, including important safety information, Wegovy clinical study information and restrictions, visit hims.com. When we started building this podcast, I'll be honest, I felt like I had to figure everything out on my own. Scripts, recording setup, branding, scheduling. Every day there was something new. And that to-do list just kept growing. And that's the thing about starting any business. It can get lonely fast. Suddenly you're wearing every single hat. Looking back, I really wish I had a true business partner from day one. That's where Shopify comes in. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world, and even 10% of all e-commerce in the US, supporting everyone from huge brands to people just getting started. If you ever thought about launching something, Shopify makes it less intimidating. You can build a beautiful online store with hundreds of ready-to-use templates that actually match your brand's style. No design degree required. And it's not just about looks. Shopify is packed with AI tools to help you write product descriptions, create page headlines, even enhance your product photos. So instead of getting stuck, you keep moving. Plus, it helps you get the word out like you've got a full marketing team behind you. Email campaigns, social posts, all in one place. And when things get complicated, Shopify's got 24/7 customer support ready to help. It really is like having a built-in business partner handling everything from inventory to payments to analytics, so you can focus on actually growing your idea. Start your business today with the industry's best business partner, Shopify. And start hearing... Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/uncovered. Go to shopify.com/uncovered. That's shopify.com/uncovered. And links to our sponsors can be found in the description below. Okay, Ron, tell us the backstory about the DoorDash grandma, because you and I have often spoken about how Trump randomly shows up at Chick-fil-A, and there's a girl there, and she's like, "Oh, I love you, Mr. Trump, and I'm your biggest fan." And it turns out that she's somebody who's been campaigning, working for one of these kind of campaign groups since forever. And there never are these impromptu moments that Trump would like to think. They've always got some planning behind them, and maybe he just finds it impossible to find real people that genuinely like him and want to get involved in his campaigning. So just give us the backstory before we show the clip.
I mean, as we have documented exhaustively at Midas over the years, nothing Trump does is organic. Everything is heavily scripted. It's all BS. And we were on this as we have a pretty good machine that is good at digging. And the second we saw DoorDash grandma show up, we got her name.
Yep.
We were checking her out. We were digging up her history, voting history. It's what we do. It's what we did throughout the campaign. The problem is we're like the only ones. There's not many media that does it. So they don't care. They just feed the propaganda. They push it out. And so when we were pointing out over and over in the campaign, like the random black woman at Chick-fil-A actually works for Republican campaign committees, and the people at the Harvard Pagoda that he visited, the Harlem Pagoda, none of them were from Harlem. They were from the New York Young Republican Club that drove in there and posed as like random Harlem people, even though they were all white men. So I mean, we've documented this so many times. It's just not even funny. So, but that was all during the campaign. We haven't really seen him do that during this presidency. So here is the same playbook. So here's the other thing I'll tell you. Heading into the midterms, I follow all the Republican consultants, and it's a terrible thing. I mean, they're horrible people to follow. They're very cynical and they're very calculating and Machiavellian, but I have to follow them because I need to know what they're planning and what they're doing, even though I don't like any of them. And when you listen to them, they all are saying the same thing about the midterms right now, which is we thought a year ago we were going to have a whole different package of things to run on. They thought that they were going to be running on no inflation, low prices, gas under $2 a gallon,
border closed,
economy, job market going crazy, deficit coming down, no new wars. This is what they thought that they were going to be running on in this midterm election. And basically they will admit, not openly, but they say it off the record, that's all gone. They have, and they will tell you off the record that they only have one thing to run on now. I mean, they thought they were going to have 10 things. They have one thing to run on, and that's the Trump tax cuts. They have nothing else. So we are going to hear a lot We already did again today. A lot about the tax cuts that were in the one big beautiful bill because they have nothing else. This is the only thing they're going to do. So they came up with this harebrained idea to have a DoorDash delivery person deliver McDonald's to the Oval Office and to point out how much this random delivery person is saving and no tax on tips. And oh, by the way, just turns out that this grandma who works for DoorDash has a husband who has cancer, who's undergoing cancer treatments. And the money that she saved from no tax on tips is helping pay for her husband's cancer treatments. It's just like, who came up with this? Steve Chung? Is this his idea? Like,
Right.
Who came up with this ridiculous harebrained scheme to try and pass this off? And it turns out, of course, that this person is from Arkansas, is not even from DC. You know, she's appeared and spoken at Republican events in the past.
She changed her hair, didn't she? She used to have long, dark hair, and now she's got the kind of short grey crop, or maybe it's the other way around. But the other thing is, it illustrates how, Trump cut billions in healthcare. Yes. And
put these no tax on tips. And when you think about it, with the deductions involved and how much money, I mean, she maybe if she got a lot of tips, lots and lots of tips, she might have saved a few $100 in taxes from the way that the no tax.
But it's a pittance.
But the amount that's going to help pay for her husband's cancer treatments.
Yeah,
it illustrates just the absurdity of Republican policy positions.
Right. I should mention that where I'm from, nobody pays for cancer treatment. It is free. Right. Let's take a look.
Hear any of what they're saying? Let's watch and listen.
We call it the great big beautiful bill. We should call it the great big beautiful tax cut bill because it's tremendous amounts of money, and that's overtime. That's also on Social Security, as you know.
Yes.
And it's pretty amazing.
Yes, it is.
Well, you're really nice. Would you like to do a little news conference with me with these people? These are not the nicest people. They're not nice like you. You know that, right?
I'll do whatever you ask me to do, sir.
So the no tax on tips is something special, right?
It's very special.
And that's the one that really pertains to you more than anything else.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Fantastic. And so it's such an honor to meet you. And I think you voted for me, do you think?
Maybe.
I heard you're a great supporter. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'll put this over here. And why don't we have a news conference with the president?
Okay.
Want to do it?
Sure.
You don't have to say too much, I think.
Looks real authentic, right?
Yeah, it's
totally legit. By the way, he
Vance
ended this little encounter by handing her $100 bill, which he to help pay for her husband's cancer treatment,
which is
you
free.
Remember the one time he visited a grocery store during the campaign. The plan there was to illustrate like how much food prices went up under Biden, so he goes to a grocery store, never actually like walks in, because I think Trump would he would explode if he actually walked inside a grocery store, because he's never been in one in his entire life. He has never been in a grocery store. So he went as far as the register, and he struck up a conversation with some lady at the register.
Yes. And
tossed her $100 bill, if you remember famously. I think we showed it on here. Didn't even put it in her hand. He tossed it at her, and here's $100. Buy yourself something nice.
He did say at the rally, or a few rallies, that you're supposed to show ID to buy groceries. And remember, he got a whole load of trouble for that, really exposing how little he knows about everybody else's reality. But what this does, because obviously it leaks out that she's not who she says she is, or not who they said she is. And of course, he has no inner monologue, so he actually starts to say it out loud towards the end. He goes, "Oh, I hear you're a big supporter." She knows she's been told not to say anything about that. So that's why she doesn't go, "Oh, yes, I voted for you."
To the bit,
Right. So it's they're basically doing a bit, and then he puts the McDonald's on the floor, which is just so disgusting. It's like I wanted her to say, "I'm not leaving till you eat that cold Big Mac, and I want to watch you squirt ketchup up the wall while you're at it."
The only thing worse than McDonald's is cold McDonald's.
100%. And you can never bring it back to life. Those French fries cannot be resuscitated, no matter what you do to them. So this, again, if we add this into the mix with the Matrix, we're seeing this kind of very public decline of this propaganda machine, and him basically unraveling, because some of the stuff that he's posting, I mean, you follow it more than I do, but I just know, I read your posts where you're like, there has been a constant stream of consciousness tonight in the early hours. So he's obviously feeling something. He's feeling like he's losing grip. My worry when he loses grip of the media narrative and support is that he then goes and drops another bomb on another country of brown people. That's my fear with this guy.
So everybody around him says he's not sleeping. And that's evidenced by the fact of the time that he posts. And it's funny because you hear people say, oh, he didn't post that. I mean, granted, there's some things he doesn't post. It's the ones that are like not all caps and there's everything spelled correctly and stuff. A lot of the foreign policy stuff he doesn't post. A lot of the endorsement stuff he doesn't write those. But most of the stuff he does post. So those 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. stuff are his. And then the other crazy thing is, he'll post at 2 a.m. and then he's posting again at 7 a.m.
Yes.
And they are him. And
Yeah.
so, and other people around, what they do is they brag about it. They say, the man never sleeps, he's up all night and he's up early in the morning and, it's unbelievable. Well, what I've read, I mean, again, I'm not a doctor and you talk to the doctors about this stuff more than I do, is that's another symptom I've heard of, like dementia, is not being able to sleep.
Yeah. And you don't want, I mean, this used to be a thing like in the 80s and 90s, like city people boasting about how little sleep they got. And that was the kind of, you could measure their prowess as their business acumen because, I only need 2 hours sleep. I mean, Margaret Thatcher was famous for that. She kind of got no sleep and showed off about it. But I don't know about you, but I actually want my president to sleep as much as possible. I want them to get some really good shut-eye so that they're not going to make any crazy decisions about bombing a country that doesn't need to be bombed the next day. And that is the problem with this, guys. And as we all know from sleep deprivation, that it is like torture. It is, in fact, used as torture in some places.
And I think it's because of the drugs that he takes,
Right.
Is my other belief.
Interesting.
That's why he's up all night.
So he went to a UFC fight, didn't he? I mean, he's been talking about organizing this big fight at the White House and the front lawn and the back, and
that's coming up. That's 2 months from right now,
right? Which is completely bonkers.
It's on his birthday.
That's what America needs right now. But anyway, he went to this this UFC fight. Didn't he take Marco Rubio with him or something?
I mean, I couldn't even believe this.
Yeah.
Honestly, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Because the optics of it and the timing of it was, you have JD Vance in Pakistan. The Pakistan, you have the negotiation, the big peace negotiation that Trump was touting. Right. Everything's going to get worked out. It's all going to be fine.
Yeah. Meanwhile.
So we know that Iran said, we don't want to meet with Witkoff and Kushner because they're Netanyahu's puppets. And
right.
We don't
I loved
trust
that
them.
moment, by the way. I thought that was so funny.
And they said, we want Vance. So because Vance is apparently like the only one who openly expressed in cabinet meetings that he doesn't think the war is a good idea, which is why he was not allowed in the Situation Room,
right?
By Trump.
Yeah.
So Iran's like, we want that guy. We want the guy who was against the war. So Vance goes over there, flies all the way to Pakistan, which I think is exactly halfway around the world from here. It's like exactly 180 degrees.
Yeah.
So he flies all the way over to Pakistan to engage in these high-level negotiations with the Iranians to try and end this terrible war that's impacting the global economy. So Vance, at the same time, literally, I'm on social media, I'm watching that because we hear the meeting went on and on for 20 hours, right? And all these back and forth. And so I'm up late trying to wait to hear Vance is coming out. Okay. So we're all waiting for the Vance press conference. And Vance literally comes out and is saying, we got nowhere. Everything fell apart. Nothing got done. And at the same time, I'm watching Trump coming out of the tunnel of a UFC fight and, high five and everybody is there in Miami.
Yeah.
And he walks over and shakes hands. I'm like, wait a minute. That looked like Marco Rubio.
Right.
I'm like, there's no way that as these peace negotiations are going on, the Secretary of State is at a UFC fight in Miami with the president. Like, there's no way. So I had to go back and rewind it and zoom in.
Yeah.
And it was damn if it wasn't Marco Rubio. And it shows you the unserious clown show that we have going on when the whole world is watching these peace talks, and then they see the president and the U.S. Secretary of State ringside at a fight.
Greatest country in the world, Ron. Let's take a look. Yeah, there he was. There he was.
And by the way, Marco Rubio looked like he was completely hammered drunk. I mean,
wouldn't you? I mean, what else is there to do?
Isn't that the Secretary of State's job? I mean, I kind of thought that that's what his counterpart was there. The Iranian foreign minister was in Pakistan.
Yeah.
But Rubio was at a UFC fight. I'm not really understanding that, part of the whole thing.
Is this that Rubio has kind of washed his hands of this war too? Because, Rubio, to me, is on his own lane. He wants to be the president, right? So he's kind of trying to stay out of trouble where he can. J.D. Vance is like a clown, so we just send the clown, let him do that. Because that's quite unusual that the vice president would go and negotiate this. It should be the Secretary of State, if not those two realtors, of course, Witkoff and Kushner.
There was a lot of Republicans who believed that Vance was being set up by Trump or somebody else to look bad because they knew that this was going to be failure theater. They knew that it was never going to happen. So you send Vance over and, the whole thing goes nowhere. And then if a deal gets negotiated a couple weeks later by Marco Rubio, the optics of that is like Vance failed, Rubio succeeded where Vance could.
Right.
That could be what's happening here.
That's so interesting. I mean, it's never what it seems, and that's our job is to try and read between the lines and just to remind people that the mainstream media just repeat what is happening. Never question it. I've been going on a few of the UK networks, reporting back and trying to explain what's going on over here. And they ask me, questions based on what they see. And I almost have to say, look, that's not really the question right now. You've got to read between the lines. You've got to look in the cracks between the paving stones.
Always. Yeah. Because keep in mind, Trump has never endorsed Vance for 2028. I mean, he's been asked about this many, many times. Are you going to back Vance? And he has refused to commit to that fact, which is a little bit unusual. So I'm not so sure that Trump is going to back Vance in 2028. I think he might do what he's doing in the Texas Republican Senate primary and say, well, I'm just going to stay out of it and, let them sort it out, which would be a devastating blow to Vance.
Yeah, I mean, I happen to think we're not even going to see any kind of election like that we're going to end up with Trump in the new kind of East Wing ballroom bunker White House with the doors bolted and, no drones getting in as he promised us. And the election will be effectively canceled because he's gonna pull something.
We know
100%,
that.
100%.
What is it going to be? We don't know exactly, but it's not going to be a straightforward election. No. We know that.
And Timothy Snyder's been saying this in the last week or two, and he's somebody I've had him on the show and try and listen
Brilliant historian. Right.
Yeah. And of course he escaped to Canada the moment he knew that everything was going in this direction. Let's talk about Ron DeSantis, somebody that we don't kind of often talk about so much on this show. But he was like obviously playing golf with Trump in Doral or something. He was seen at the golf club. Is he angling to kind of get in on the administration? Does he see a vacancy presenting itself in the cabinet maybe?
Yeah. So, I mean, these are two people who aren't friends,
No.
They haven't been friendly. They sort of occasionally have a marriage of convenience, when of course, DeSantis ran against Trump, they had a very nasty, ugly primary where they attacked each other personally quite a bit. And then when DeSantis finally dropped out and endorsed him, he didn't appear with him. He wasn't
so
photographed
funny.
with him.
Yeah.
He gave a very lukewarm sort of endorsement, didn't campaign for Trump, et cetera, et cetera. So, and we know, Trump repeatedly has said that DeSantis is only governor because he endorsed him, which is true. And so, there has been a lot of bad blood there. So but DeSantis has a big chunk of the Republican Party that likes DeSantis. They definitely think that DeSantis is like the better guy than Trump. There's a big chunk of the Republican Party, maybe 20%, who believes that, they probably screwed up by not nominating DeSantis for president instead of Trump, because he would give them all the same policies without all the mania and stupidity and the wars and the craziness. So, which is probably true. He probably would have been a lot more ruthless and calculating in implementing a lot of this right-wing stuff than Trump, who's, appointed a bunch of bumbling fools in his cabinet. So, and we know that DeSantis's sort of, I think his plan was to have his wife, I think, succeed him as governor. That kind of fell apart on him. Trump with her scandal with the charity. And then you have Trump doing the early endorsement of Byron Donalds, which took kind of a lot of the wind out of the sails. So I think that DeSantis is trying to figure out, what does he do? Because he's out of the governor's mansion at the end of the year. And what is he going to do? He's not going to practice law, So I think there's a lot of people who would like to see DeSantis who wanted to see DeSantis as either DHS secretary, attorney general.
Yes. So
we know that DHS secretary went to Markwayne Mullin, but we know the attorney general spot is open. And DeSantis is a lawyer. He's never really practiced law per se very much, but he's a lawyer. So, and he was a JAG officer in the Marine Corps, military. I mean, not the Marine Corps, in the Navy, military officer, military lawyer. So you have this AG vacancy, and suddenly Ron DeSantis pops up, yucking it up with Trump at the Doral down in Miami, which is a little unusual. So a lot of speculation happening, including by me, that there's something going on here. But I think here's what I think is going on. I think that Trump talked to him about being attorney general, right? And I think DeSantis is a very calculating guy, and he's not stupid. And I think that he correctly recognizes there's Trump going over to greet DeSantis. He correctly figured out that attorney general is the worst job in the Trump administration. The absolute worst position that you can have in the Trump cabinet is attorney general. Why? Because you got to deal with all the Epstein nonsense.
Yes.
Plus, Trump wants you to do a bunch of illegal stuff. He wants you to prosecute all of his political enemies. It's one of the reasons why he fired Bondi, because she didn't successfully indict all these Democrats. Mm-hmm. And that is what is expected of whoever becomes the next attorney general. And I think DeSantis is smart enough to know that would be that's going to be a disaster, that a lot of those cases are going to be thrown out by judges, thrown out by juries. And Trump's going to be complaining the whole time. The MAGA fans all hate whoever the attorney general is for not doing enough to prosecute the deep state. So I think DeSantis correctly, I think Trump probably felt him out. That's what the purpose of this meeting was. If he would be interested in being attorney general, I believe, I'm just speculating, that DeSantis is smart enough to turn that down, right? Because I think that the job that DeSantis really, really wants is Pete Hegseth's job. He wants to be Secretary of Defense, because that would perfectly springboard his future presidential aspirations.
Especially
have
if he
governor of Florida and Secretary of Defense on the resume. Right. That's what DeSantis wants.
Right. But I was saying, especially if he ends the war, if he's the one that's able to broker the end of the conflict, because...
And it's easy to stay out of controversy and trouble as Secretary of Defense. It's not easy as Trump's attorney general. You're always going to be in controversies. Right. It's easy. See, Hegseth just creates controversies, but DeSantis would do a lot of bad shit, but he would not constantly be it wouldn't be a constant clown show like you're seeing with Hegseth, because DeSantis is a little more media savvy and all that. So that's clearly, to me, the job that he wants, and he wants to sort of do the last 2.5 years as Trump's defense secretary. So I think Trump called that meeting because he wanted him for attorney general, but I think DeSantis showed up to the meeting because he wanted to talk to Trump about, well, I'm not really interested in that, but if the defense secretary job ever comes open, I would love that position.
And it would be a good fit because, Trump is so dumb, he just needs to know that you have walked past a military base at a normal walking speed and suddenly you have experience in the military. And it seems that DeSantis might have more than Hegseth. Would you agree with me that I think Hegseth is driving this conflict in Iran in a big way? And if it wasn't for him, because it's a holy war to him, he's talked about his friends in the past that have been affected by this. And and when we see Trump there, walking around in his polo shirt and, just... You would never know there was a war on where tens of thousands of civilians are being murdered every single day.
Yeah, he was coming right out. The night this was the morning after he was at the UFC fight.
Oh God,
he was played golf and then he met with DeSantis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is the world that Trump inhabits. He just isn't a president. He is a guy who plays the role of a president when the cameras are rolling, but when the cameras are not rolling, he doesn't like to president. And I just get the sense that the problem with that is when you've got people like Hegseth who are going to work and are driving their own personal crusade, that bad stuff happens. And this war in the Middle East, Trump's planned to do a blockade, which contravened. Iran said, well, you're breaking the rules of your own ceasefire by doing this blockade. It's bonkers, but it also clearly is coming from people who just don't have their eye on the ball fully.
I don't think he went to war because of Hegseth's sort of holy war stuff. I think he went to war because of Netanyahu.
Yes.
But I think if you had a Secretary of State in that position who was a strong person who recognized that this war is a bad idea, as I think DeSantis does, he could have said, no, no, sir, this is a bad idea, instead of being a cheerleader for it. And I also think, as Trump has said this to the press multiple times, that many Republicans in Congress want Hegseth out. Trump has said that. He said that to Hegseth's face in cabinet meetings, like, a lot of my friends think you're terrible and they want me to fire you, but you're my guy. Think about how that makes Hegseth feel. It must make him feel like Trump is having a lot of conversations with his friends about me who are talking shit.
The fact that Trump can't think something and not say it, which is not great when it comes to, international relations.
Think about how that makes Hegseth feel, who's insecure to begin with.
Yeah.
Knowing that Trump's friends are in his ear saying they want Hegseth fired. And I think him meeting with Ron DeSantis doesn't really help that insecurity very much.
Finally, let's talking about kind of bad appointees in Trump's cabinet. But didn't one claim to be teleported to various places? What is this story? We're calling it the Waffle House story. Just give us a bit of background of this.
This guy, Greg Phillips, I've known him for a long time because he was the guy behind 2,000 Mules. A lot of people haven't put this together. I've seen the reporting on the teleporting stuff, which CNN has been doing some reporting on because they unearthed some of these old podcasts. But I haven't really seen too many people talk about the fact that the whole 2,000 Mules movie hoax, which had to do with cell phones manipulating votes and stuff, was started by this guy.
Right.
And this guy has a long, crazy track record where he used to work for the Texas state government. He was in all kinds of scandals for steering government contracts towards his own personal business enterprises. He's been in numerous controversies over the years. And during the 2020 election, he picked up on Trump, all these election fraud conspiracies, turned that into a new business where he brought in a bunch of money from billionaires who gave him a bunch of money to investigate the election, which he then investigated with this woman who I think he ended up having an affair with, who's on the podcast with him. And then they cooked up this crazy report that Dinesh D'Souza then seized on and made a movie out of it.
Yeah.
And he made a bunch of money off the movie because Trump promoted the movie. And then he was later forced to admit that a lot of the information that the movie was based on that was supplied by this guy, Greg, was all false, was fabricated. So fast forward, this guy, Greg, this is the reason he is like the head of disaster relief for FEMA. How did he get that job? Because, he got in front of Trump because of the 2,000 Mules thing. Trump did the movie premiere at Bedminster in New Jersey and invited him, and he was sitting with Trump at the movie premiere. So that's how he got in front of Trump's face. So Trump ends up appointing him to this big FEMA position, which is a very important position. And this guy's a complete nut job. Yeah. He's a corrupt nut job too. So CNN unearths these podcasts that he gave, which are not old. These are podcast things that he did like a year ago, where he talked about the fact that he has been teleported in various places over the years. And, he's told all these wild stories. And the funny part about it, the postscript to this, is that Trump was asked about this yesterday. It was like, hey, did you know your FEMA guy is talking about being teleported? And Trump was like, what's teleporting? He didn't know what it was. And he was asking the reporter to explain to him. Imagine the president going, tell me, what is teleporting? I don't know what that is. And having to explain to the president what that is, that he claimed that he was transported to a Waffle
He probably
House.
thought it was some new fangled thing that he hadn't heard of yet that all the kids are doing.
Yeah. So it's going to be very interesting now that Trump has been told that his high up FEMA appointee believes that he has been teleported numerous times over the last couple of years. It's going to be interesting to see whether he keeps his job. He may get a promotion knowing Trump.
I mean, he could become the vice president. Let's take a look.
We had a teleport incident, 2 of them. The car lifted up and took me where I was going. And I ended up at a Waffle House like 50 miles away from where I was. It was an incredibly frightening moment to experience yourself in your car flying through the air. The girl that had died came into the car with me, and she lifted me and the car up and out of the way from a truck that had slid across the road.
So in another clip that we found, he described collapsing inside an Indianapolis Lowe's, then reappearing across the street in a McDonald's parking lot with little memory of how he got there. He said his phone, his health app on his phone, had 15,000 steps, and he described it as something beyond a medical episode. Listen to him here.
I mean, the whole space and time thing, continuum, it fell with me. This isn't a health thing. This isn't the cancer. This isn't, me. This is a spiritual thing.
It's mushrooms. That's what it is, mate. I mean, he's describing anybody who drinks too much, pulls over to the side of the road because they know they're not sober enough to drive, and has some kind of crazy drunk dream and then wakes up.
Well, Americans can rest assured that if there is a major natural disaster, a hurricane or tornado in your area that wipes out your city or wipes out your town, and you need help urgently, that's the guy that's in charge of providing that help.
The speed at which he talks could be a problem in these disaster situations as well. It's like, come on, man. I was thinking just this. I mean, there is a very serious point to this, and that is that if Trump only needs to be exposed to these people for a few minutes to give them a cabinet position, right? And especially one as important as FEMA, because wasn't FEMA being handled by Kristi Noem with immigration before? And, it's not really top of the list for the Trump regime.
Correct.
And yet we are living in a country that, because of climate change, is seeing more and more natural disasters where people really suffer and need the help of the federal government. And it is an insult, really, to give a guy like this such huge responsibility when he's clearly tripping.
Yeah, he's a Looney Tune. But, he cooked up a conspiracy that led to a movie that convinced a lot of Trump's people that the election was stolen, and you can't really have a better qualification than that for a senior position in the Trump administration.
Yeah. Apart from strolling past a military installation, of course. Okay, we have to finish, but always fascinating, Ron. I'm so grateful. The audio podcast of this show drops later tonight. Don't forget to comment down below. Check out our sponsors down there as well. Share the show. Watch it again. It's available as the audio podcast, of course. If you want to watch some and then listen to some when you're driving, that's what I do anyway when I like to, watch Ron, which is something I do every week. So we'll come back next Wednesday and bring you another episode of Uncovered. Thanks.
By the way, a consistent thing in the comments is, I always see people say they wish that there was more than one show a week. And, I just I can't handle more than one. I already have a breakdown and have 3 shots of tequila after each show.
I have to have a lie down as well. It's a lot. But, we love it and we're here for all the right reasons. So please keep up the support and we'll come back next Wednesday. Okay, thanks, Ron.
All right.